Well, welcome everyone to another edition of the Voluntary Option. My name is Pete Yapel. I'm your host, and it's an impromptu show. It's not on my scheduled time. It's just something I really had to talk about after spending some time with friends last night, hearing some ignorance on the news, and then again in conversation. And truly, what it boiled down to is why are we continuing to fund those that uh, uh, justify how we can continue to give money to an entity that it has zero interest in or regard in our well-being. And I'm blessed to have a great guest on my show tonight, Dan Berman, and I couldn't think of somebody better to have on in a conversation, honestly. This, I mean, yes, we could talk about taxation and how they get our money that way. But I mean, they're continually stealing from us, Dan, just not only on our taxes, but I believe they're continually stealing from us. And what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about it. Sorry if it looks like I'm tearing up. It is because this is an emotional subject, but it's also because I tried to tell last year.
Gotcha.
It's interesting, and I've thought about the way we're being nickeled and dimed, but also seeing the way the politicians are always trying to pitch us these new tax schemes that they have. It's almost like every tax we have came from somebody else trying to get their hands on our money. It's like, oh, we've got one guy. Oh, well, I was elected to this position. How can I milk the tax-paying public? Let me figure out something from here. And so every department has created their own taxes, all these different tyrants. And then, of course, when they leave office, they leave it to their succession, and they continue to collect the same taxes and then come up with new ones. Because when you come into an office that's already earmarked for somebody else's pet project and they're not there anymore. So now if you have a new pet project, you need a new tax that goes to that project. And of course, these projects are always like, oh yeah, they're going to be so great for the American public. And really it's like, no, you don't care about that. You just want a project for yourself, and we're all getting screwed anyway.
Right. And then, listen, and that's where the argument when we always say, taxation is theft, and, how are we going to build our roads? How are we going to build them the same way, people? I mean, they take your money and do it. And think about when they take your money and do it. They'll say, oh, we're going to build roads, and your taxes are paying for the roads. So much money before a pebble, a piece of tar, a machine is put down. They blow half the damn money on ignorance and stupid positions and just people with names and things like this. So things are overpriced. Things are inflated. And opening a free market system and allowing people to do this thing, allowing companies to do this, and communities to decide, okay, well, we need to pave that road. Let's, whatever money we have to contribute communally to get this done, we can get it done. But when I mention that to people look at me like I'm fucking nuts. They're like, well, why would I want to give money to my community to do that? I mean, who's going to, well, listen, the government's doing the same thing and robbing you hand over fist every time that they do it. And but they don't seem to believe that.
Right. Well, it's interesting because those same people, why would I want to give my money over there? Well, why would you want to give your money to the government? It's really the same thing, because if you think about it, because a lot of people are like, oh, I like giving my money to the government because I like all the things I get from them. Okay, so if you like giving it to the government, why wouldn't you like giving it to somebody else? And it's interesting too. There was this really great book called In Defense of Chaos. And one of the things, I mean, this guy goes through like all these anecdotal tales of places that don't have certain things in the world. And one of the places he was talking about was Brazil, where they don't have police, or where certain neighborhoods don't have police because there's just so much crime. But people actually want to live there safely, and the government refuses to send the police there, right? The police are doing their other things, or they actually had the police going around killing people in some neighborhoods. But there's gangs, there's drugs, there's violence, there's all kinds of stuff going on. And so what happens is you end up with some people who are a little bit wealthier than others. They end up creating their own police departments, paying for them privately, and they end up getting better protection because they're not there looking for innocent kids with a handful of drugs that they're just trying to throw in prison. They're there just to keep people safe. So they're
Right.
focused on that job. They're paid,
Right.
and they never.
I live in a perfect example of that. I mean, I truly live in a perfect example of that. I do live off grid, but I live off grid, but that doesn't mean I'm by myself. Just that me and my neighbors have 10 to 40 acres of property, and we don't rely on the government for our power and our water and our, and all these things, even our roads. I mean, our roads we take care of. But we do the same thing here. If there's someone that doesn't belong here, I mean, we handle that justly. We don't need to call the police. We don't need to involve the government. Why? Because we live here. They don't live here. I mean, I'm fortunate enough to live in a carrying, state, where everybody here has a weapon on their side of some kind, and it's not there to hurt somebody. That's the misconception. People here don't carry their guns to go shoot people. That's not why they carry their guns. A lot of times we carry guns because we have mountain lion and coyote and, and javelins that are running around our property at times that we need to, scare off and such. And 90% of the time we don't shooting them. We're just scaring them off. But to be able to carry that gun and have that protection, and it is a deterrent. People know when they pull down our road that eyes are on them. People see them. People know what they're doing. And if they don't know that, they find out very quickly because people do stop and just ask, hey, do you really have a business being here? I mean, we live on our land. There are people to be here. So you can do that. You can organize a central or a localized government to take care of those things. And we kind of do that. We all watch out for our neighbors. Somebody's sick, they're taken care of. It's the same thing that everyone is looking for the government to hand to them when you could do it just as a community. Right now we sit back and we have a decision being made between two white crazy men that have only their best interest and they're only their best interest in mind. We see that through campaign promises that are being broken immediately, like the Harris and Biden ticket that tried to suck the cannabis community in by saying, hey, we're going to decriminalize, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. No, what they're saying is that people will be tried fairly. If you're not going to be tried differently if you're black or you're white. You're still going to be tried. You're still going to get convicted. You're still going to go to jail for this plant. So the lies are ridiculous and absorbent. So again, we're paying this guy. We elected him. We're paying his salary. We're paying her salary. They're living in a big, beautiful home. They get all these perks. And again, for what? To continue to oppress us? I mean, how do we finally get people, Dan, to understand that what they're doing is crazy? I mean, it's literally crazy what they're doing.
Yeah, it's and what's interesting too is you're talking about you live kind of out in the middle of nowhere, and what's interesting about that, most people don't think about this. I grew up in a big city. Only half of the country lives in what are called incorporated areas, which means you have a city, you have police, you have everything else. The other half of the country lives in unincorporated areas, which is you've got a sheriff who's a half an hour to 45 minutes away. He's not going to come out for, unless there's like an actual crime happening. And what's interesting is you look at the map. Everyone always shows these, the map of who voted Democrat, who voted Republican. Look, the whole country's red, but all you have, the thing is, most of the people are in these little dense blue areas, which are the big cities. And it's really interesting because those are all the people who usually want to ban guns. And it's like, okay, well, yeah, maybe they don't need guns so much because they live 2 blocks away from a police department who they think, or who they think at least, will come at, a minute's notice whenever there's an emergency going on. It's a false sense of security, but at least it's some sense of security. Whereas when you live, 10 minutes from your next door neighbor, that's a completely different story. And I think this is really important to consider when we have this idea that we're all going to vote and we're all going to live under one system, when it's like, no, we don't even live under one system. Why should we have all the same rules out in the middle of an area where you're 50 acres, 10 miles away from your next door neighbor versus where you're 10 feet away from next door neighbor? Right. The rules are obviously different. How you handle conflicts and and what types of conflicts actually happen are completely different. And yet we always go to like, oh no, we got to create a new federal law that governs everything and applies to everybody, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it is, and it is, and it's there's proof in that pudding. I say to everybody, I lived in New York. I was a New Yorker, and I didn't live in the city. I lived in the upstate. I worked in the city, so I'm very familiar with it. Don't get me wrong, but that set of rules in those circumstances are completely different from the circumstances that I live in. And even living in New York, living 60 miles north of the city, the situations were completely different than they were 60 miles south, where you've got, like you're saying, millions and millions of people. Now, I had a guy come on my feed the other day, an activist, and I won't say his name or nothing like that. I don't do that. But he said to me, "Well, Pete, couldn't expect me to vote for somebody like Jo Jorgensen. She wanted to take my food stamps away and wanted me to go to a church to get my food." And I said, "So a government card getting free food is different than going to your community and getting free food. What's the difference how you're getting your food or how you're being fed or how you're being taken care of if it's on a government card or whatever? Why is the government doing it? Let your community, let your church do it. Let people like that do it. We throw out, the food banks here feed the javelinas. They feed the wild hog because they don't have anything else to do with the food, when people don't come and take it. There's such a surplus and we think we're starving. Just think of grocery stores and what they throw out and restaurants. Classic example is we walked into a buffet and 10 minutes before the place closed, they were loading up the stuff. Why? Because it can't look empty. Yeah, but what are you doing with that when it's all done? Oh, well, we're throwing it out. Well, you're throwing it out. There's people on the street starving, man. I just don't understand how people don't see the ways that, how we are saying that, well, these are what's wrong with the issue. This is what's wrong with our country. These are the things we need to solve it. Then why are we looking to the government to solve it when the answers and the solutions are definitely right in front of us?
Right. Well, I think, and this is one of the issues I've kind of come to have with the Libertarian Party is that they do push like, okay, we're going to get rid of food stamps, but we're going to, you're still going to be able to solve this problem somehow. And I think that's really a distraction from the real problem. Instead of saying we're going to take food stamps away and fix this other thing, instead, what I like to address is how we're going to actually prevent people from even needing food stamps, because ultimately the government has created all these problems. The government has inflated the currency. The government has taken away our ability to live self-sustainably. And it all happens through taxes. They've inflated the cost of living. They've deflated the cost of wages. This is all a government created problem, and you don't have to talk about welfare programs and how we fix this by like welfare when we can actually go all the way back to the root of the problem and say, hey, if we fix this, nobody's going to need welfare. And it's right. Absolutely insane to me that we're, I had somebody argue to me that oh yeah, I was talking about how the FHA is a terrible program because it makes it impossible for somebody to actually own a house, and they came back with, yeah, but since the FHA was created, the United States has a higher home ownership today than it has ever had in the history of America. And on paper, that might be true, but not really when you consider the fact that nobody owns their home. They own debt. They're still paying off that most people don't pay off by the time they die. So you never actually own the house. The bank owns the house and you're just renting it from them. So no, we don't have the highest ownership. We have probably the lowest ownership. And then also when you die, you can't leave it to your kids because the government wants to tax that. All these things that they're doing. And so what do we spend most of our money on? Most Americans spend at least a third of their money on rent. That's their biggest expense. And if you're spending that much money on rent, you can't save. You can't build towards your future. You can't build towards an early retirement and all these other things. And you often you have to make the decision between, okay, am I going to have a roof over my head or am I going to have food to eat? And this is all a government created problem. We don't need to worry so much about welfare programs if we go back and we fix these main issues that are creating these circumstances in the first place.
Right, I agree with you 100%. I think if the party in general could take a way to focus, they have the correct principle and they have the correct thought process and maybe correcting these things. But like you're saying, if we address the problem and give a solution rather than just to put it out there, oh, this is what's wrong with the place, this is what's wrong. No, here's how we can make life better for you, and then you won't need to have this program in order to assist you. You know, it's always the common question with Social Security, especially because of the situation or the paradigm that we've created, or especially around the Social Security system. You know, Social Security was there as your savings, developed as your savings, a way to have a means when you got older. And now it's, you get a splinter and you can go to the doctor and they can say you can't work for the rest of your life, and people are collecting this way too, bastardizing the system a bit in that way. Now, again, when I got to see Joe speak in Phoenix, and when she was asked about abolishing Social Security, she made the point to say that she understands that many people live on that system now and have that system to rely on, but offering the public a way to invest way for them to invest their money in their old age is a better program, especially with young kids now. And they're all tech savvy and buying Bitcoin and doing everything that they could possibly do to try to get ahead a little bit more, but giving them the opportunity to invest their money and not the government, or have it there for the government to borrow even against. I mean, come on, just think of how much money they've taken from Social Security itself, in their own name to do other things. How do we fix that or ease those people from worrying about the fact that we understand you're older, or we understand that you're handicapped? How can we ease those issues with people so that they don't feel as though they're just going to have this big brunt if there is a change in party?
Right. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do is you need to start giving people the option to opt out, and to not pay into that system. I mean, the whole system itself is somewhere between a Ponzi scheme and just outright fraud. A lot of people are under the belief that you're paying money into some sort of trust account, and that money is being held there for you. But no, it's not. It's as soon as the money gets there. Yes, it's a separate account from the Treasury, but as soon as that money gets there, the Treasury takes that money and it's now in the Social Security in the form of IOUs. This is why not every year, but every once in a while we hear, well, if we don't raise this tax now, we're not going to be able to make payments on Social Security, and everybody's, oh my God, we have to raise the taxes or we're not going to get our, and it's so stupid, and that system is so careless too. Like this system, I had a friend who his grandfather was on Social Security, and what happened with him was, they make automatic deposits into his bank account every month, and he uses that to pay his rent. And 1 month they said, they instead of depositing money, they took out everything that he had, because they have access to his bank account, and so he couldn't pay his rent, and all these other problems started coming up. And they tried to get a hold of Social Security, which spend hours on hold, and they finally talked to somebody, and they said, oh, well, apparently for the last couple of years we've been overpaying you every month, and so we found out that we actually paid you more, and we decided to take that money right back out of your bank account. It's like, okay, so you don't like call the guy to like have a conversation and say, how do you want to resolve this, because we can't keep giving you this much. Like, no, it's just, we take the money. We don't care if this has any consequences on your life. We don't care if it gets you evicted from your apartment. This is how careless the system is. On top of that, you talk about what's your return on investment. You get a statement every once in a while saying, how much money you've paid into the system, but you'll never get that much money back out. And it's never designed for that. Right now, the people who are getting their money out now never put that much money in. They're getting paid from the people who are putting it in now, which makes it a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
You've got to. And here's the thing: like people are, yeah, but what happens if like I put all my money in the stock market and it crashes? Well, what happens if the Social Security puts all its money in the stock market and it crashes? I mean, where is your money going when you give it to Social Security? Nobody knows. Everybody just, oh, it's backed by the full faith of the government, and it's going to be there forever. Nothing bad can ever happen. And yeah, that's the propaganda we've been told, but the reality is those programs never last. We're already stretching the life of our government a lot longer than any other government on the face of this planet, and it's bound to collapse at some point. We keep going further and further into debt. We keep inflating our currency. We're going to get there, and at the end of the day, I mean, when you talk about building a self-sustainable life and not having to depend on your income, the first thing when you talk, and wealthy people are, evil wealthy people are always talking about this. Oh, I want to be financially independent, right? I don't want to have to work for a living. The first thing that these people always talk about is owning a home, right? So you're not wasting money on rent. And a lot of people get that. Yeah, I'm going to buy a house. It's better than wasting my money on rent. But you get an FHA loan, which means you're spending twice the cost of the house is going to the bank in interest, and then you're paying like ridiculous property tax for the rest of your life. And it's like that's still paying rent. So no matter how much you try to escape this system, the government is still there. Even if you think you own your house, you don't, because the coronavirus could happen and you're out of work for a couple months and you can't continue to make your mortgage payments. And the mortgage system is designed to have you making payments until basically your retirement age. The average American gets their first mortgage at 32 years old, and those mortgages are all 30-year mortgages. So you're going to be done paying it when you're 62. This is what trap are you setting yourself up for? And it didn't used to be like that. Before FHA, you'd get a 10-year loan on a house that cost 2 years' salary, so that you didn't have to spend your entire 2 year salary on the house. But that's what now a house costs 5-10 years salary, and you're paying 30. You're paying it for 30 years. It's absolutely insane.
Yeah, it is. And again, the whole point of owning, again, when you're paying taxes on that property, you don't pay your taxes, find out how quick they come and take your home from you. So you're always renting no matter what. I mean, I'm blessed. Thank God. My taxes are $113 a year. If I got to pay taxes, I'll pay $113 a year rather than a week like it is for my father pretty much in New York, or a month anyway, pretty much for my father in New York. Well, way more than a month, every 2 weeks at least. In New York. And I never understood that, why the ground there was so much more, rich in value than the land I live on, because I wouldn't trade where I live for nothing. All right. Now, and again, with Social Security, Dan, comes Medicare. Okay. Now you've got an insurance policy that is the worst of the worst. I mean, seniors, they don't get covered for dentures. They don't get covered for eyesight. And if they do, it's minimal. What's the first two things that go wrong with you when you get old? You lose your damn teeth and your eyes go bad. Yet they don't want to pay none of that. Well, yeah, but your premiums, and it's just taking these poor people, even further. That's why I say when people come to understand the insurance system and understand that if it wasn't set up in this governmental lock, and you could determine what coverages you need. Why do I need coverage for, certain things that I'm paying? But I'm paying for them on the policy. Is obviously covering them, so I'm paying for something. If I don't need a benefit, why am I even paying for a benefit? So they load you up with things you don't need, and then they don't give you the things you do need. If they had a free market system, it was opened up for people to compete, they could do that. And again, offer it more affordably. That's just my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole industry is a scam too. The thing with insurance is, and the government, like as much as the government has banned gambling, it's always legal when they do it, right, or when they regulate it. Insurance is gambling. It's literally gambling. It's, do I think a hurricane is going to hit my house this year? If there's a high probability, the insurance is going to be higher and the payout is going to be lower. If the probability is very low, the premium is going to be very low, but the payout is going to be higher. It's gambling. You're taking a chance on what the future holds based on real world situations that might actually happen. But the thing is, when we talk about health insurance, like that's not insurance anymore. This is almost like membership programs to pay for things that you're going to need. You don't get insurance for putting gas in your car because you're going to have to put gas in your car every day you go to work. You get insurance for you don't get insurance for, or sorry, let's stick with the car analogy. You do get insurance for when you crash into somebody because you're not expecting to do that every day. In fact, you're trying really hard not to, but you can't control the future. If it actually does happen, you're covered. That's the whole point of insurance. And when we look at the healthcare industry, it's, oh yeah, we're going to get you insurance. It's going to cover the basic stuff. It's going to cover your annual checkup. It's going to cover this. It's going to cover that. We want it to cover our diabetes medication. We want it to cover things that we're going to. Once you have diabetes, you know you're going to have to make these payments every single month. So you're not making an insurance gamble. If anything, you're becoming part of a membership club that's going to offer you discounts, kind of like going to Costco or something like that. And what's mind blowing is that the only reason you even need that is because the government has set up these monopolistic protections for all these pharma and medical companies to make those things more expensive. So, for example, when we talk about insulin, it costs $100 in the U.S. what costs $12 in Mexico. And what's really messed up about that is the same stuff they're selling in Mexico for $12 is the same stuff you buy in the U.S. for $100. And when I say the same, I mean it comes out of the exact same factory in the United States. It is FDA approved. The only thing is, they know if they export it to Mexico, they can't sell it for $100 because there are other companies in Mexico that aren't allowed to sell it in the United States that are also selling it here. But it's their cost of manufacturing this is $3. They can sell it for $12, but since they have a monopoly in the United States, they can sell it for $100, and it's illegal to go to Mexico and buy it and bring it back into the United States unless it's just 1 or 2 vials for yourself. It's absolutely insane. But if we address the fact that hey, if we could get the cost of insulin down by 80%, 88%, people who have diabetes would not be relying on their insurance to get discounts on it. That's absolutely insane, and it's a form of extortion. Oh, you're not going to be able to get your medication unless you get this stuff. And then it's also a form of extortion when they start talking about, oh, well, if you don't have health insurance, then we're going to charge you an extra premium. I know they got rid of this. We're going to charge you an extra premium every year for not having insurance on your income tax. It's absolutely insane. But all this is it's a racket. I mean, this is the mafia. What is the mafia? The mafia used to run Vegas, right? Or the mob, whatever you want to call them. That's gambling. Why? Because it's easy money. And now they're running the pharmaceutical industry, but they've got on nice suits and ties, and they got the government backing it, so it all seems legitimate. But it's really just a big scam.
All right. Once something ever enters a government contract, like you're saying, once you're in contract with the government, the price goes up by 10 times. Again, I know we've touched on a lot of things and just quickly, but I wanted to, for a reason, now here, let me touch on one more. I believe in just foresight and sheer intelligence, I guess, or what's actually going on. I believe Biden's going to get the win. He's going to be president of the United States for 4 years. And, he's wanting to force every human being to wear a mask. Okay. He's wanted to force people into vaccinations. My way of looking at it is people that stand in front of me and argue vaccines. And I say, well, are you getting the vaccination? And if they say yes, I'll say, well, then you don't need to worry about me getting the vaccination. You're vaccinated. You're not the world police to worry about me getting the rest of the world sick. That's not what your job is here. Take care of you. I'll take care of me. But if you're vaccinated, why do you care if I'm vaccinated? And again, these are choices, that people have to make. I believe that masks, if you feel more comfortable wearing a mask, wear a mask. I don't care. If a business says, we really truly want people to wear a mask, not that we are, the government has told us we have to force you to wear a mask. I'm okay with a business asking me to wear a mask when I go in there. Why? Because it's their business. It's up to me to decide whether I want to give them my business or not. I can walk out. But forcing people to do these things is just another way for them to control us. And again, what I worry about is that people, when I think of Russia, I think of people standing in line for toilet paper. Why did they pick toilet paper to be the big, to be the big thing that runs out all the time for some reason now? Why? Because it's just a little bit of a foreshadowing. Guys, we can get a hold of you a grasp of you and have you do anything we want you to do, as long as we put it on the little square box and tell you that that's what we want.
Right, and it's funny the toilet paper thing. So well, somebody wrote a really good article on that. Basically, this came about from everybody working at home, so nobody was going from the office to the going from home to the office to work. So they started using their bathroom at home a lot more, and so they needed to stock up on toilet paper, which they didn't have. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but you're absolutely right. When the media starts talking about, we're running out of toilet paper and all this other stuff, that people, they're not going to buy enough to last them for the next month or two. They're going to buy like 5 years supply, because they think, this is the last roll. We're never going to be here anymore. There's never going to be any more ever again. And the interesting, back to that article, like the reason they said this happened was because the industrial toilet paper that they use, I'm sure that stuff is different than the stuff you have at home. It comes from a completely different supply chain, different factories and everything else. And so there was a huge logistical problem within the whole industry of making toilet paper, which is absolutely insane. But at the same time, this came from a government mandate of you're not allowed to go to work. And then it came from media hysteria of, oh my God, we're running out of toilet paper. Go buy as much as you can. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's crazy, and we're being manipulated. And the whole thing with the vaccines, absolutely. There was I don't even know how much of this is true anymore, because I see so much news and so much garbage, and you can't even tell which is which. But they say Bill Gates he's not getting the vaccine, and his kids aren't getting the vaccine. Who knows if that's true? I don't know. But you're absolutely right when you say, well, if you have the vaccine, why does it matter if I have the vaccine? It's absolute hysteria. And what's interesting is, like, so Bill Gates actually made a statement about this several months ago, where he said, like, yeah, we want some sort of digital certificate that tells whether or not a person has had the vaccine. But years before that, all the crazy conspiracy theorists were like, yeah, they want chips implanted in us, and blah 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 and all this other stuff. There was an interesting video that went viral a long time ago, which was a guy calling Domino's Pizza. Yeah, this is Domino's Pizza. Well, yes, I'd like to order 3 extra large pizzas, blah, blah, blah. And then Domino's was sitting there on order. Well, we can't sell that to you because we have your medical records on screen here, and it says you have diabetes and you have this and that. And so we can't, and they're going through their records, they're going through their address, all their information is there under the premise of it's there, for your own protection. And you keep going back to this stuff, and it's like, where are we right now? We are where all the crazy people predicted we would be. And it's absolutely insane, but it's preventable. We just got to stop paying attention to, we got to stop listening to these idiots who are telling us, what we have to do with our lives, and start, if you block the noise out, if you realize you're not really around that many people that you need to worry, if you realize you can, okay, there's a virus out there, you can take better care of yourself, keep your distance, then vaccines and these things aren't necessary. But then when you realize that the government's always in bed with these big pharmaceutical companies who are trying to make billions of dollars, and then also to control our travel, now they have an excuse to monitor our travel more closely. It's absolutely insane. And right now, we're free to travel between states in the United States, which is great. But as soon as you want to travel in and out of the country, we've got this passport system, and people say, oh yeah, but that's different because it's different countries. Well, different states are basically different countries that have an agreement together. So what's to stop them from saying, oh, we're going to require passports for things to cross borders? And in fact, they already started doing that under this threat of COVID, where it's not necessarily like passports, but some states, especially around New York, they're starting to go. At one point, they were going door to door, knocking on people's doors. Are you from New York? You got to go back to New York. We don't want you here. That kind of stuff. This stuff is happening, and the more that they push this agenda, and then the more that they make us afraid, the further they're going to be able to do this absolutely insane stuff that they're doing.
Right. We noticed that. I mean, we were living proof of that at the national convention. If you went to Florida and then you went home, then you had to quarantine yourself, and I mean, come on. The next thing they're doing it with now is I just saw that Ticketmaster is saying if we're going to go to a concert, you have to show either that you were tested negative within 72 hours or attending the concert, or show proof of vaccination. Again, we have HIPAA laws in the United States that protect our personal information like that. But again, they're suspended during these times. I hate this whole Robert's rules kind of way to run government, where we change things for the moment because it fits us, or it's, like, oh, let's suspend the rules for 30 minutes because I just don't feel like, burping with everybody right now, but they do this so often, and, and people, another thing I try to explain to people is that they don't really have to know anything about politics to understand that this is all wrong. They don't have to understand the political system even so much to understand how badly they're being screwed over and how they're being screwed over. We see people complain daily, on Facebook, social media platforms, or just in public or in person when we speak to them about all the things that they really hate and don't like about what's going on around them. But what they seem to forget is that they're really truly the ones that could change it if they wanted to. We have an understanding, just people like you and I, or with like minds. I don't want us to make it sound like we're different or we're, superheroes or special, but we see what is being done to us. We understand that it shouldn't be being done to us. We know that we could make a difference and have it done differently. Yet people are still so ingrained in the fact and afraid. They are afraid of our government. I mean, I'm a product of the 60s and 70s. That's when I grew up. I remember the whole Nixon era, and from the Nixon era on, I can remember my dad and mom saying at times, oh, if the government finds that out, if you don't let the government, isn't the government supposed to be me? I mean, isn't the government supposed to be me? But
right. It's interesting because you talk about, like, you don't need to know how the system works, but I think that's part of the intimidation factor. I mean, you like, I made this great clip of two movies, two great. I mean, I'm sure this happens in a ton of movies, but two great ones. One of them was Revenge of the Nerds, where Booger is playing poker with the Japanese guy, and he's like, the Japanese guy's like, I have 3 aces, I win. And then Booger's like, no, look, I've got a 2 and a 3, and like that beats your 3 aces. And then the guy's just like, what? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you win. And it's like he was right, he won. But the fact that the expert on how the game is played can sit there and tell him, well, that's just not how the rules work. I think that's really what kind of happens here. I mean, when you have somebody on TV saying, oh, the governor just wrote an executive order saying we have to wear all the masks. Well, that's bullshit. They don't have they have the authority to write an executive order, but that executive order doesn't apply to people who are not working for that governor. So what does it mean for you and me? Absolutely nothing. But if you don't understand the rules and you're just hearing him say, well, I said so, and therefore you have to do it. Well, the TV said so. The guy on the TV said so. The guy who lives in the governor's mansion said so. And it's part of that mystery of how the system works that I think just like lets people to believe, well, we have to do this, or else the police are going to come and get us. And a lot of it's just fear. We know. I mean, like, we know the reality is they're first, they don't have the authority to go to your house and arrest somebody for not wearing a mask, but they don't have the manpower. They don't have 1 million police to run around the state and arrest everybody for everything. But at the same time, everybody's got that same mentality of, well, yeah, but nobody else is violating the executive order. I don't want to be the first one. I don't want to be the one that they make an example out of, and this sort of thing. And it's all fear and manipulation. But I think as much as you're right, you don't need to know how the system works and how politics works. I think at the same time that contributes to our fear that prevents us from actually doing anything about it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And I think that if people would understand that as long as they have a basic understanding of truly how our government's supposed to work, they could look around them and see that it's not working anything like it's supposed to. They can look and see that they break the rules more than we'll ever be allowed to. I mean, they just do what they want to do. It don't matter if it's constitutional or not. They truly just make these decisions. But that's, I guess, the point of this whole conversation. We could pick apart every last thing that we complain about during the course of a day, every last thing that we feel is holding us back, and we can point it all back to the fact that we are paying people to do a job that they are not doing. In any other instance, if you were paying somebody to do something and they weren't accomplishing what you wanted to do in an hour's time, you would fire them. You would say, no, I no longer need your service. I'm going to do a better job of looking for a better, candidate for the position. And why we don't take the same time when it comes to those that really are running us, man. And that's what they're doing anymore. They're just running us, and I don't get that. I don't get where this
it's the gun to the head.
Is a good thing.
It's the gun to our heads. I mean, a lot of people, well, what do you want me to do? Stop paying them? Well, yeah, stop paying them, fire them. But then they're going to come and take my house away from me. They're going to take my money away from me. They're going to throw me in jail for tax evasion. It's fear. And, I talk about this all the time on my show about how most of the taxes that they have, we don't even have to pay. And there's nothing they can do about it. It's just a matter of, fear and intimidation tactics into getting our money out of us. It's like somebody coming up to you and saying, you have to pay for this. And when it's the government, people just believe them. And it's like, but who are you? And why do I have to give you anything? Oh, it says here on this magic piece of paper. Well, screw the magic paper. Like, we need to grow the courage and understanding.
Too,
we
listen,
need.
The only true way we're going to solve this is to elect the right people. And when I say by electing the right people, people that are actually going to come in and change what's wrong. The LP offers great candidates for that. The Green Party has some good. I mean, Howie Hawkins isn't a bad guy. I've spoken with Howie a few times. I had the opportunity to interview him when he was running for governor in New York. And he's got some good ideas. I mean, there are other parties and other factions, and shit, there's constitutional Republicans out there that are looking to do some better things. Are they still tied to the party and still part of that one party, two party evil system? Yeah, but at least they're a little bit brighter. Until people can understand. Now, I've been making the point, and I went on the road last September as an emissary for the New York Party and promoted the Walk for Change when I was involved in it after creating it and such. And just liberty became too important to me. When Larry Sharp and I spoke before I went on the road, and he said, your message has got to be heard. Keep talking, keep bringing these guys together. You're going state to state. Let's introduce these people state to state. So, they know each other. The one thing we don't do is promote our people the correct way. We just don't do it. I mean, there's no way you can compete with people that are on TV all the time or in the public face all the time or names are mentioned all the time. If your name or face isn't mentioned at the same time, people say, oh, well, that's why the 5% is so important. Listen, scratch my ass and the 5%'s ass. 5% doesn't get you into an office. It's never going to get you into an office. Yeah, being able to speak on the same stage, but we should be able to do that anyway and could. What we need are a viable voice reporter that has a press pass, and at every one of these press instances that everyone else has somebody to question. Why aren't we saying, well, so-and-so would have done it this way, or so-and-so believes that we could change that by this? How can you say that they're wrong? And this gives us the opportunity at that point to set some kind of a debate, or at least get the name there where people can understand or recognize it. I love Joe. I love Spike, just because Listen, they are. They're preaching principle and trying to go out there and really make a change. Uh, uh, do I think that we competed well? No, I don't think we competed well at all. I never think we do. I think that each state needs to sit back now, and I'm in Arizona now, man, and I've already made the point. I've reached out to the state board, every county. I'm a plan on attending every meeting. You know, I'm nobody, Dan. I'm not planning on running for office. It's not why I'm visiting all these places. I'm visiting them to let them give them an understanding that we need to do this and we need to do it right. We got 18 counties here. We need 18 people in a county position, at least. You need at least one person in every county that have an LP next to their name. We have 9 state and federal positions. We need an LP in there. We have to get them in there. And I think if we turn and focus, we've got 2 years. The day after Biden was announced president, I got a freaking email in my email from the Democratic Party asking me which one of these candidates did I want to see run in 24. And wasn't it strange that Biden's name wasn't even on there? Camilla was at the top of the list. So how long does that mean Joe's really going to last or live in our government system anyway? You know, he could slip and fall on a banana. You know, we never know what might happen to him.
Oh, man.
All I know is that you've got 2 people in that are going to be in office that have sent more people to jail in this country than they've done anything. They have put people, ruined families. They have destroyed neighborhoods. They have taken people that have, for what? For pot? Or I don't even give a shit if it's meth. If you're an 18-year-old human being and you want to shove it in you, shove it in you. Just don't rob a bank, because then you committed a crime. Putting something in your body isn't a crime. It's what you do to get it. If it's illegal, that's a crime. So if there's no illegal activity, even to get it, possess it, or use it, just use it. I don't give a shit. Oregon got it right by decriminalizing, in some senses. Because again, there's still jail time if you look down the whole list. You know, you could be a first offender, a second offender. Oh, now you're a habitual offender. Oh, come on, man. You know, so you gave me a few free rides. But we really got to look into these things where, you know, if we say, you know, let's just allow adults to be adults, you know, if we allow ourselves to live by a certain standard of respect, whether it's just for us and our things and minding our own business and leaving others alone, I think if we can impose that. But I mean, all of these little LP things that we try to tell people, you know, hey, you can have life, liberty, and the pursuit of your own happiness, you know, shit that was written out 200 and some years ago. You could do that, you know, and we stand by that, and we stand by it. You know, people are just like, yeah, but it's still, how are we going to get there? I don't know that person. I haven't heard of that person. How are they going to do this? You know, or they're going to take this away. Because again, like you say,
I think that's the biggest problem.
Right. That's the problem. Don't tell people you're taking things away. You can go with that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, the problem is we're sitting here waiting for somebody to come along and save us, when it's like, no, we don't need somebody. Like, the whole thing is, if you have a free society, you don't have a ruler. So if we start acting free and realize how little we need these people, that's how we're actually going to get to a free society. We'll stop asking them to build roads and build hospitals, and we'll start building them on our own. And in fact, the government is often the people who tell us you can't build hospitals, you can't be a doctor, you can't, because, you know, oh, we've got too many already.
Right.
The government is the problem, not the answer, and we have to stop looking to them for the answers and realize that we ourselves are the answer. And I think that's where the problem is. We need to come to that realization.
Dan, I appreciate you joining me today, man. I just wanted to hop on real quick again, because this oppression is something that, you know, it's plain as day. It's right in your face. It's there every second of our existence. And we have to get people to understand that there are ways that we can do these things. There are solutions that don't make the person that just happens to be in either a bad situation or at the time, or just needs some guidance or some direction, to have to depend on an entity to give it to them at everyone else's costs, honestly.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dan, you're running for governor in Texas in 2022. Where can people look you up? Where can they donate? How can they help you out?
Yeah, you can go check me out at danforfreedom.com. We're just starting to get ready. We were helping with the 2020 round of elections, so we haven't started too much campaigning. And of course, 2022 is a far way out there. So, but we are planning to get started pretty soon here. We've got a lot of partnerships we've built up in other states that we're gonna have fun with this. Because really, as much as I see this as this is something I'm doing for Texas, there's still a lot of other libertarians across the country that I want to help out and help promote and spread, these ideas of liberty. And I think we're really going to benefit each other by helping each other, running together and cooperating. Which is, like you said, is something we need to do a lot more to be able to promote these ideas and these candidates a lot better. But yeah, you can find me there. I'm also on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere else. You can find those links on the website, danforfreedom.com. And yeah, it's going to be a fun ride.
We appreciate it, man. It's always great talking to you, man. You're always a great guest, and we really value your opinion, man. And I'm glad we just happened to see each other, because I was just going to get on here and bitch, man. I'm glad you got on and see me in the thread, man. And
I'm always ready to bitch about the government.
There you go, man. All right, everybody. Dan Berman, everyone. I'm your host, Pete Abel, the Voluntary Option. Thanks for joining us for this quick impromptu, bitch session. But, listen, folks, we can freedom is a state of mind. Always remember that. Freedom isn't a place you go. Freedom isn't a wonderland or or an actual, a tangible thing, except for to the person. I chose freedom. I was going to walk across the United States and try to band everybody together and say, oh, isn't this bullshit? But when I realized that I could obtain that just that easily, and I didn't have to raise hell or cause anybody any disturbance or put myself through a 3,000-mile march, it's just me making the choice to do it. Live out of respect yours, respect your neighbors, respect the people around you. And that's all it's about, is respect. You don't have to be their friend. You don't have to be over there for dinner. None of that. Let them live their life in peace and achieve their pursuit of their happiness while you pursue yours. All right, everybody. Pete Abel, Voluntary Option. Live the freedom in which you wish to choose to live every day. Peace. Alrighty, end broadcast sometime today. Yeah, man, I've been having such a hard time. I've been having a hard time with,